Zito's on the run.
Yeah, baby Z.
Thank you, Zito.
Okay, Z.
That is sports media telling us that we have breaking news. Brian Daboll has been fired.
What?
It is just Brian Daboll who's been dismissed.
Mike Kafka, the OC, is going to be the interim.
And now, who wants to coach Jaxson Dart in the New York City metropolitan area in the NFC East? I imagine they'll be lining up.
The Giants have fired Brian Daboll just ahead of the Week 10 finale. And not only did I call that happening, but I called when that would happen.
I'd be impressed if Daboll even makes it to the end of the year. I'm expecting him fired by Week 10, and I've said that a few times.
Okay, I said by Week 10. He made it into Week 10. But come on, you got to give it to me, especially since on Substack I wrote that Jaxson Dart could extend Brian Daboll's life, but ultimately he was still going to end up getting fired. So I still called it. Now that he's officially been fired, there's a few things for us to discuss, though. Like, what's next for Brian Daboll? How safe is Joe Schoen, the Giants general manager? And what's next for the Giants? We're going to get into all of that, but first I've got to do the YouTube thing. Please remember to like and subscribe to help the channel grow, and please remember to turn on those notifications so that you don't miss an upload. I know, it's annoying to do the whole YouTube thing, ask for subscribers thing, but the stats say when you ask for subscribers, you get more subscribers than if you don't ask. How about this? I'll make you guys a deal. If this video gets 50 subscribers, then on the next video, I won't ask for new subscribers until the end of it. I'm Seattle Mike. This is Mike Adams Football. Let's talk New York Giants of New Jersey. All right, let's go back to the beginning. So as you might remember, Brian Daboll got hired by the Giants in 2022 after they fired Joe Judge. Despite going 4-13 in 2021 under Judge, the Giants actually had some promising pieces to move forward with. They had Saquon Barkley, Kayvon Thibodeaux, Julian Love, and Daniel Jones. Yeah, he hadn't really impressed yet, but he was entering his fourth year, and I think that he's a huge part of the reason why the Giants wanted Brian Daboll. They liked what they saw him do in Buffalo as Josh Allen's offensive coordinator. And when you look at Daniel Jones and Josh Allen, there are some similarities there as far as build goes, as far as athleticism goes. Look, obviously, even with the season that Daniel Jones is having right now, you would still pick Josh Allen if you're choosing between the two of them. But the thought in hiring Daboll was you might get a head coach that can bring the most out of Daniel Jones. And in 2022, first year Brian Daboll was the head coach there, I think we got that. We got the best version of Daniel Jones we had seen until this year anyways. The Giants went 9-7-1 that year. They made the playoffs. And look, I wasn't on the Daniel Jones bandwagon that year. I thought he was being overhyped. In fact, here's a memory.
He accounted for 15 touchdown passes that year. Brian Daboll figured out a way to win around Daniel Jones. He didn't win because of Daniel Jones. He didn't really win with Daniel Jones.
Apparently, I didn't know how to pronounce Brian Daboll's name for some reason, but I was never on the Daniel Jones bandwagon, though this year he's already got more passing touchdowns than he did in 2022. He's leading the league in passing yards. He's top 10 in QBR. So yeah, on that bandwagon, save a seat for me. I think I'm jumping on pretty soon. And bring it back to Brian Daboll. Daniel Jones' good performance in 2022 did earn him a Coach of the Year honors. And we do have to kind of take the Coach of the Year award with a grain of salt. Because when you look at that award and you look at who's won it, it never seems to be the best coach that year, or at least rarely feels like it's the best coach that year. It's whatever coach you were expecting to suck, but then they didn't. Last year, for example, Kevin O'Connell won Coach of the Year. Not that you thought he would completely suck, but it was going to be his first year without Kirk Cousins. Sam Darnold was coming into the season as their quarterback. There wasn't a lot of optimism from most people for the Vikings. I actually did think Sam Darnold would work out, but whatever. Kevin O'Connell wins Coach of the Year. The Vikings didn't even win the division last year. And they got swept by the Lions last year, who had a better record than them, was widely regarded as a better team than them, better coach team than them. So shouldn't Dan Campbell have been the Coach of the Year last year, not the guy that he beat twice? Even looking at the year Daboll won it back in 2022, the Giants were 9-7-1. The expectation coming into the year was that they would suck. They surprised everybody, made the playoffs. Cool. The Bills were 13-3 that year. That was the Damar Hamlin year. So that's why the Bills and the Bengals had one less game on the record that year. Wouldn't Sean McDermott have been the better candidate for Coach of the Year that year? And I know we're down this rabbit hole and off Brian Daboll for a moment here. You really want proof on how bad that award is and how meaningless it is? Kevin Stefanski's won it twice. Ron Rivera's won it twice. Pete Carroll's never won coach of the year, despite how dominant the Seahawks were in 2013 and 2014. But fine, I'm a Seahawks fan. I'm biased. I'm just angry, right? How about this? Andy Reid hasn't won coach of the year since 2002. He's been to 6 Super Bowls since then. He won 3 of them. And he's never been coach of the year since 2002. So Daboll's coach of the year in 2022 isn't anything to get overly hyped about. And look, the proof's in the pudding. He ultimately went 20, 40, and 1 in his time with the Giants. That's not a recipe to keeping your job, especially in a season where the Giants already have blown 3 sure fourth quarter victories. On Sunday, there was a point where ESPN gave them a 96% chance to beat the Bears in the fourth quarter. They lost. They had a 99% chance to beat the Broncos late in the fourth quarter. They lost. They had a 90% chance to beat the Cowboys with 5 seconds left on the clock. They had a 90% chance to beat the Cowboys. Giants still lost. I mean, time and time again, Daboll's proving that he just can't close out these games. He can't win. Having said that, I don't think Daboll's year needs to be over, because you know who should call him right now and offer him a job? Sean McDermott. No, I'm not saying fire Joe Brady and bring Daboll in as offensive coordinator. The Bills are leading the league in rushing yards per game. They're second in most yards per game overall. They're 7th in points scored. Bills' offense is good. In their losses, their 3 losses they have this year, their offense has been terrible. They had to come back to even make it a game in the fourth quarter against the Patriots. They couldn't get anything going against the Falcons, couldn't get anything going against the Dolphins. So if I'm Sean McDermott, I think I'm calling Brian Daboll to just bring him in as a consultant or a special advisor or assistant head coach, whatever title you want to give him. I'm reuniting Josh Allen with his former offensive coordinator that he communicated with really well. Still Joe Brady's offense, but Daboll might be able to help us see some things that we're missing here. Similar to when Matt LaFleur hired Robert Saleh last year after Saleh got fired. LaFleur brought in Saleh to help the Packers. So I think that's what should be next for Brian Daboll, unless he wants to just take the rest of the year off, which you couldn't blame him if he chose that either. Let's get to the next part of this, which is how safe is Joe Schoen? Joe Schoen is staying on as general manager for the Giants. He's beginning the head coaching search, according to ESPN and insiders and all those people. I think keeping Schoen on makes a lot of sense. I know a lot of people don't agree with me on this. I think Joe Schoen's done a good job. Let's look at his track record. Schoen and his scouts are the ones responsible for getting Jaxson Dart, Cam Scatterbo, Malik Nabers, Kayvon Thibodeaux. He pulled off the Brian Burns trade and signing. He's made a lot of really good moves. If there's one fluke, it's that he let Saquon Barkley slip through his fingers. But in his defense, that had a lot to do with trying to save money for the Daniel Jones deal, which ended up being for $160 million, which, once again, I criticized that deal at the time, but I think that Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll were seeing the Daniel Jones that we're seeing on the Colts. In practice, they're seeing this guy just light it up, and he's a great quarterback, and they're like, yeah, no, this guy could be a star in this league. Us as fans, all we saw was the on the field, in the game things that didn't go very well. That's not Joe Schoen's fault. That's Brian Daboll's fault. You know, that blame gets shifted to Daboll when you're sitting here and watching, hey, the guy that used to be our quarterback is leading the league in passing yards for the Colts. Why couldn't he do that with us? He's in MVP conversations this year. Why couldn't he do that with us? And we're supposed to have the offensive mastermind that brought us Josh Allen. Why can't you do it with Daniel Jones? So that's why you can't really blame Joe Schoen for Daniel Jones not working out with the Giants. So Joe Schoen's not going anywhere. What's next for the Giants? Assuming that Mike Kafka, the Giants offensive coordinator who's going to be their interim head coach for the rest of the year, assuming that he doesn't earn the job in the next 8 weeks, I think I've got the man for the job. He'd be my number 1 candidate for any NFL head coaching vacancy right now. But I think the Giants would be a great fit for him. Kliff Kingsbury. Don't click off the video yet. Hear me out. Let's remember why Kliff Kingsbury got fired in Arizona. Why did it go bad? He couldn't win with Kyler Murray. Okay, well, guess what? Jonathan Gannon can't win with Kyler Murray either. He just benched him. According to an article from The Athletic, a lot of team executives have come out and said they wouldn't want Kyler Murray even as a backup. So maybe, just maybe, Kliff Kingsbury wasn't the problem there in Arizona. And with how dysfunctional the Cardinals have been for years, dating back to pretty much since Bruce Arians left, you really feel like it might be the owner more than the coaches or GMs. One thing that Mike Florio talks about a lot is we don't realize how involved and overly involved some of these owners are. With Cardinals owner Michael Bidwell, I think that's definitely the case. Remember, reportedly, he's the only one in that organization reportedly that wanted to give Kyler Murray that massive contract. Steve Keimy didn't want to do it. Kliff Kingsbury didn't want to do it. That was all Bidwell. Okay, let's move to the present. Kliff Kingsbury's work in Washington with Jayden Daniels has been amazing. I mean, Jayden won Rookie of the Year last year. Kliff Kingsbury's offense ripped into the playoffs, tearing through the Lions, who were considered a very good team last year. We all thought they were going to go to the Super Bowl when we were coming into the playoffs. They tore through the Lions. They made it all the way to the NFC Championship with a rookie quarterback. Kliff Kingsbury did a pretty damn good job. And yeah, this year's been a little bit of a step back, but Jayden Daniels hasn't been healthy. He's been trying to do it with Marcus Mariota. The receivers have been inconsistent. I don't think this year's on Kliff. And personally, I think Kingsbury should be at the top of the list for the Giants and the Titans. Those are the only two head coaching vacancies right now. Obviously, we're expecting more by the end of the year. If I'm Kliff Kingsbury and my options are Giants, Titans, Dolphins, Browns, there might be some other options out there, but let's stick with the high probability ones: Giants, Titans, Dolphins, Browns. I look at those teams and I go, okay, the Browns, they're projected $17.8 million in cap space next year. That's all they'll have, which would rank them 23rd. They've got a very involved owner who's been tanking the franchise pretty much since he bought it in 2012. Remember, Jimmy Haslam, the Browns owner, he's the one that forced Baker Mayfield out and forced the organization to trade away several first-round and second-round picks to go get Deshaun Watson and give him that massive fully guaranteed contract. So thanks to their owner, the Browns lost a ton of money, a ton of cap space, ton of draft picks, all for a very, very, very subpar quarterback. It is the worst trade in NFL history. So I wouldn't really want to work for that organization. The Dolphins are married to Tua for at least one more season, but they also play in the same division as the Bills and the Patriots, so that's probably going to be a pretty uphill battle to try to win that division in the next few years. The Titans still don't know what they have in Cam Ward, but it's not a terrible job, honestly. If I'm Kingsbury, I'm definitely going to think about Tennessee. They don't have a lot of prospects on the team right now. Your interview would have to go something like where you tell ownership, it's going to take a few years for us to actually get this thing right. So yeah, there could be some job security there. And if they give you a big enough guaranteed contract, then you know that they're going to put some faith into you. So that'd be a job I'd consider. There's just so much uncertainty because they don't have the pieces right now. Now let's turn to the Giants. They have a very well-liked, respected owner. They have their quarterback of the future, their running back of the future, a young number one receiver in Malik Nabers, a great defensive line. And by the way, they also might just land the number one pick in 2026, which, since they have their quarterback of the future, they could easily trade and flip into multiple firsts, multiple seconds, which means they could build a team for cheap rookie contracts, which also means they could make splashes in free agency because of all the cap space that they're saving. Are you ready for the really crazy thing that I'm about to say? I don't think that it's crazy that the Giants could go on a deep playoff run in 2026. They could be hoisting a Lombardi trophy by 2027. I think that job is very appealing if I'm Kliff Kingsbury. Oh, and by the way, of the job opportunities I just listed, of the owners of those teams, the Browns, Dolphins, Titans, Giants, only the Giants owner, John Mara, only the Giants owner has won a Super Bowl before, and he's done it twice in the last 20 years. The Giants aren't nearly as dysfunctional as their roommates, the Jets. I definitely don't think they're as dysfunctional as the Browns. And if I'm Kliff Kingsbury, I know exactly how important it is to work for an organization that's not dysfunctional. I think the Giants should want Kliff Kingsbury, and I think Kingsbury should want the Giants. Thanks for watching this video. I'm Seattle Mike. This is Mike Adams Football. Please remember to like and subscribe. I will catch you guys next time. Later.